It's an event that changed many lives, and what happened at the Who concert still echoes today. 11 people died in a stampede to get in the doors at what was then Riverfront Coliseum.
And today marks 40 years since the tragedy. Hard to believe. Our David Winter is live where it happened with images and memories of that day. David.
Cami, Kyle, a small crowd is expected here at 7 o'clock to commemorate, as they do every year, the 11 souls who died on that fateful day. There's already 11 candles and some flowers left on the small memorial here. And while this building may have changed names, the memories and the images will remain. The images are so indelible. Policemen doing CPR on lifeless bodies, people being carried out on stretchers.
People were on top of one another, people were stepping on one another, people have bruises, people have broken bones, people were bleeding, people were throwing up, and the crowd would not move back. It was a mob.
It is one of the amazing things about it that it's been 40 years. Just hard to believe it's gone by.
4 decades has not dulled the memory for Dan Cavins. Today, he is a cameraman at Local 12, but on that day, he was a concert goer in a crushing sea of people.
It was so compressed, and there was a girl who was not with us, but she was shorter. She kept getting wedged down, and we got our arms around under her arms, and we're just desperately trying to keep her up above the crowd, because if she got wedged down, we figured she just wasn't going to make it.
And so many did not. The plaque outside what is now Heritage Bank Center displays the names of those who were lost.
They're all there, all 11 names. I didn't know the names that night, but I saw the faces, and I'll never forget them.
Don Phillips was a firefighter who was just completing his paramedic training.
There was a young lady sitting against the wall with her friend. She was crying, and I asked her what happened. She started telling me the story about what happened. The doors opened, the doors shut, they surged, and she said, and I got stamped. She said, I heard my bone crunch, and my friend, if she hadn't pulled me out, I'd be dead. And that's when I realized what had happened to the rest of these young people.
Phillips says he remembers walking past a policeman who was doing CPR on one person while another was standing next to him. That was Officer Stephen Kramer.
Some of the smaller people were being lifted up and hoisted back to the over the top and hand fed over the top, because they got so hot inside of that crowd and they were so small that they just wanted to get out.
Then it was chaos, bodies everywhere, clothes everywhere. After his shift, he sat with fellow cops at a restaurant decompressing.
I'm eating chili at 9 o'clock in the morning, looking at myself in a newspaper. So that's what I see. Whenever I hear The Who, I see that newspaper picture.
The Who would go on to play that night. Cami Deerking, just a sophomore at Miami, was also at the concert, but she was in reserve seating and had no idea what had happened until she left.
We get in the car, and as we're driving away, turn on the radio, and all of a sudden we hear what happened. As many as 11 people died, dozens injured. It was national news. And we were freaking out. We said, oh my God, this is horrible.
And just like Cami, The Who's Roger Daltrey told us after the concert that the band did not even know what had happened.
We came off stage and we were asked to do a short encore because there were problems. That's all we were told. And then Bill told us when we came off, when we finished. And I mean, we just shattered.
Well, many lawsuits would eventually be filed and settled. The city paid just $150,000 to each of the 11 families that lost someone, and then $750,000 was split between the 24 or so people who were injured in that incident. Now, no criminal charges were ever filed. The Associated Press, by the way, did announce that The Who will be returning to Cincinnati for the first time in 40 years. And Cami, I remember that you and I were just talking about this and how different things may have been had there been cell phones at that day.
Yeah, and for a couple of reasons, David. First off, we would have been able to call people who were so worried about us, our loved ones. I got back to Oxford and I must have had 24 messages on my answering machine, old school, saying, call me, this is your mom, it's your dad, it's your sister, friends, are you okay? Because they knew I had gone to the show. And then secondly, the pictures would have been out instantly. The world would have known right away what happened. And obviously a lot of people had to wait to hear and to see what happened. And I just want to leave you, David, and everyone out there with the sort of the haunting image that has stayed with me all of this time. And that is when we got to the Coliseum after the stampede had already happened, because we had the reserved seats. Lights and sirens everywhere, paramedics everywhere. And of course, I'm thinking 70s rock concert, it's probably people who had overdosed on drugs. And then all of a sudden I saw these mounds, and I mean, I'm 6 feet tall, they were taller than I am, mounds of clothes, shoes, purses, garbage. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps. I remember seeing that and thinking, what in God's name has happened here? It was just haunting, and I still have those images in my head. So you're right, David, cell phones would have changed a lot. It was just a terrible night, and we thank you for the story, appreciate it. You know, this Saturday there is another remembrance at the annual concert held at Finneytown High School where 3 of the 11 were students. You can go to local12.com for more information about that.